Warabash. This is an important visit for Prime Minister Barzani at this time so he can raise the issues on behalf of the Kurdistan region government directly to leaders in Washington, D.C. And Prime Minister Barzani has been welcomed by the U.S. Secretary of State, Mr. Antony Blinken, and he will also have meetings this week with members of Congress and other senior government officials in Washington, D.C. Yesterday, the Prime Minister began his agenda in Washington with meetings with the Secretary of State. This is an important meeting, an important message where the U.S. Secretary of State is sitting with Prime Minister Barzani and speaking about the importance of the United States' direct relationship with the Kurdistan region as part of a 360-degree, a holistic view of the America's relationship with Iraq, including Kurdistan region. I had a privilege and opportunity to meet with Prime Minister Barzani today, about an hour ago. And he met with members of influential think tanks and universities in Washington, D.C. This included some former ambassadors and former presidential appointees, and he discussed his agenda items. And I will share his top 4 agenda items with you. The Prime Minister emphasized that he wants Kurdistan region to be protected, and he is informing Washington, D.C. leaders that he wants to have air defense systems, missile systems to protect against attacks from Iran and other neighboring countries. Prime Minister Barzani wants there to be a budget. He wants a budget resolved. He wants a solution between Baghdad and Erbil. And he emphasized, he said that we should not have the salaries of civil servants used as a bargaining chip, as a weapon, a political weapon for the budget. And the Prime Minister wants the full resumption of oil production and exports to raise more money for Kurdistan region and Iraq, and also a respect for the Constitution that was established in 2005. Mr. Frank should be commended for creating a law for direct funding from the United States to support the Peshmerga. And that is a sign of the America's friendship and financial commitment to Kurdistan region, especially for the protection of the region against the threat of ISIS. America and Kurdistan are deepening cooperation from security but also cultural ties. And we have seen efforts from the U.S. consulate in Erbil to have programs for English language learners and programs for cultural exchanges and academic exchanges. There are Kurdish students who are traveling to the United States for university and also for the International Visitors Leaders Program through the State Department. And of course, there has been $10 billion invested by international oil companies. The friendship between Kurds and Americans will continue and will continue to grow. The visit of Prime Minister Barzani here to the United States increases the awareness of Americans about Kurdistan region. Americans need to be educated that Kurdistan region and Kurdish culture and Kurdish language is different than the central and southern parts of Iraq. And I think we will see increased investment and tourism as soon as the issues related to budget and security are resolved. Americans are adventurous and curious about the Middle East, then Kurdistan region can be a strong attraction for investors and tourists, similar to places like Dubai. The Prime Minister's agenda and the agenda and message of APIKUR are similar. We at APIKUR represent 8 international oil companies, and I am in Washington this week and will meet with 9 different offices for members of Congress and the United States Senate. And we are informing those Congress members that they must take action to put pressure on the White House and pressure on Baghdad before Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani visits the United States in April. We think it is unfair if Prime Minister Sudani comes to Washington, D.C. and continues to get more money from American taxpayers, and there will be some announcement about the status of the international coalition against ISIS. If he comes here and if he gets money and if he gets a political victory while continuing to strangle the economy of Kurdistan region and continuing to prevent international oil companies from selling oil, that is just wrong. The oil companies can sell oil and they can make the money to fill the budget to pay the salaries. The Congress in the United States is responsible for the budget. It's responsible for determining where America will spend its money. So here's what APIKUR's message is for the Congress. 1, unless Prime Minister Sudani resumes the production of oil and exports, and he must also resolve the budget issue between Erbil and Baghdad. If Prime Minister Sudani does not do those things, then the U.S. should not provide any more money to Baghdad. Every year, America gives more than $1 billion. America gives more than $1 billion in military assistance and several hundred million for development assistance and humanitarian assistance. Iraq can pay its own bills if Iraq uses all of its oil production capability and exports it. It does not make sense for families in America, in Texas, and Kansas, and New York to send money to Baghdad when Baghdad is preventing American companies from producing and selling oil. The U.S. Congress can influence that. We also want the U.S. Congress to send a message to the White House. We do not believe that Prime Minister Sudani should be welcomed here in the United States at the White House if Prime Minister Sudani is not making decisions to help all of the people of Iraq, including Kurdish people. And we think there should be conditions on any discussion of U.S. troop withdrawal. And before, yes, go ahead. We provided information to members of Congress before they went to the Munich Security Conference a few weeks ago. And yes, that message was delivered to Prime Minister Sudani. But we have 535 senators and members of Congress, and we think that APIKUR's issues are issues that affect all Americans, and they should be supported by Republicans and Democrats, and of course, the President of the United States. This is a simple issue for us. It is easy to explain. If one country is getting money from another country, then the country that's borrowing the money or that is receiving the aid should do everything it can to produce its own revenue. And right now, Baghdad is willingly choosing to stop oil from being produced and exported.